This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. You know, I was on Twitter the other day and, I'm just scrolling, doing my usual thing. And I come across this post and it's about Kevin Stefanski and Jim Schwartz. And the post is basically asking, hey, which one of these coaches is more responsible for the Browns' 9-5 record? And as you expected, people are out here debating which one they feel like is correct. And the whole concept of that question kind of made my stomach turn, not because somebody asked it, but more or less because of something I like to call the multiple choicefication of sports talk. Now, what do I mean by multiple choicefication of sports talk? Basically, every sports talk debate is a prompt for a multiple choice question with no real answer, but you treat the question as if it has a real answer to basically get people to debate endlessly. In this prompt, who's more responsible, this coach or this coach, is a peak multiple choicefication of sports talk moment, because it throws out the concept of collaboration being a factor in the record. No, that can't be a factor. It can't be that, hey, maybe both of these guys had to come together in order to have this team get to the level of success they are. Maybe Jim Schwartz brought some knowledge on the defensive end and some expertise as somebody who's been a head coach before. And Kevin Stefanski brought his knowledge of running a team and running this organization. Well, not organization, but the team itself for the last 4 years, and running the offense with multiple different quarterbacks, and brought some of that knowledge to help the defensive side of the ball. And then Jim Schwartz helps the offensive side of the ball. And it's more of a collaborative process. And maybe that's why the Browns are 9-5, not solely because of Jim Schwartz, not solely because of Kevin Stefanski, but because of the collaboration between Kevin Stefanski, between Jim Schwartz, between Bubba Ventrone, between all of the coaches that report to Bubba Ventrone, between those coaches and the quality of control coaches that report to the position coaches, and between the regional scouts that talk to the regular scouts, that talk to Andrew Berry, that also report back to Kevin Stefanski, and the collaborative efforts of all of those people doing their job well. No, that is not an answer on the prompt. It must be Kevin Stefanski or Jim Schwartz. And you're expected to pick a camp. I'm a Kevin guy. I'm a Jim Schwartz guy, and fight to the death forever in this thread so somebody can get some engagement money. And then I thought about why that bugged me so much. Right? Like, because some of you might be watching this and be like, damn, dog, this bugging you more than it should. I get it. It's not a great practice. It's kind of annoying, but it really shouldn't bug you this much. One, hey, man, what bugs people is what bugs people. And this bugged me. And I like to think about the things that bug me and try to figure out why it bugs me. And it gets deeper than just football. It gets deeper than just sports talk. And one of the things that bugs me the most about this prompt is it reminds me, as somebody who grew up in the standardized test era, of how a lot of people my age were educated. See, if you grew up during the standardized test era, and look, I don't know what Gen Z or Gen Alpha is going through, so if it's something similar, please relate. But when I was growing up, we had a massive change from studying for your grade to studying for tests that confirm your grade in order for your school to justify getting more money from the state. And if you don't do well in that grade, then you're going to lose all your extracurricular. Well, if you don't do well in that test and if your grade and school doesn't do collectively well enough on the test, you're going to lose your funding. You're going to lose your extracurricular programs. You're going to lose all this because the school don't want to put money into schools that the government doesn't want to put money into schools that they determine stupid or whatever it was. It's a scheme, the standardized test stuff. It sucks. We all know the standardized tests kind of stink. We all heard the arguments against it. I'm pretty sure there's going to be somebody who's going to say, hey man, I like standardized tests. Good on you, brother. But I'm not a big fan of it, right? Because what it does is it takes the education process away from understanding and grasping concepts to memorizing and regurgitating answers. We just want you to know what the capital of Ohio is. We don't want you to really understand why Columbus is the capital of Ohio, how that happened, why that matters, what used to be the capitals of certain regions and territories. No, that's not important. What's going to be on the test is what's the capital of Ohio. So that's all you need to know. It doesn't matter if you understand the concept, the history of the state. All of those other things are insignificant because all the test wants you to know is this one thing, this one answer to a multiple choice question. I don't think that does a good thing for people. When people are trained to answer everything in a multiple choice question. I think that has a lot to do with the polarization on literally everything. Like you think it's just politics or sports. It's literally everything. I can't watch pro wrestling without people like picking a side and fighting to the death with another side. And look, people have done things similar to that, but I do think that we're in a more advanced age of it where like we just be doing this over everything at a level that's ridiculous. And I think training us to answer everything as a multiple choice prompt is part of the problem. It's not the whole problem. You get rid of multiple choice questions. You're not going to save America or save the world or whatever it is. I'm not trying to imply anything as silly as that. But what I am implying is that, hey, man, maybe we shouldn't think and prompt every single question in sports talk as a multiple choice question. Maybe instead of asking who's the MVP, this dude, or this dude, we should ask, why do you think whoever you want to be the MVP should be the MVP? What's your definition of the MVP? Maybe we can have some deeper conversations about what the award means and advance a dialogue. But we're so caught up in this multiple choiceification of sports talk that I can't even say something like, I think Christian McCaffrey should win the MVP without being met by hundreds of people telling me, well, they'll never vote for a running back to be MVP. That's not going to be the correct answer. It's clearly going to be Brock Purdy. I know what the dumbass committee going to do with the MVP vote. I don't care about what the dumbass committee is going to do in the MVP vote. If you're asking me who I think the MVP is, I'm going to tell you who I think the MVP is, not who I think should be who I think is going to win the MVP based on that vote. But we're so locked into this multiple choiceification of sports talk that we can't even have a conversation about how we genuinely feel about who should be the MVP. We get locked up into who we feel they gonna vote for the MVP. You see what I mean? It's kind of insane when you think about it. Every question, every tweet, everything in sports talk is looked at as a question with a assumed correct answer. There's no room for concepts anymore, right? And this is where I land on it, right? Because I think this boils down to a battle between concepts and formulas. Now, don't get me wrong. Concepts and formulas can work together to create great things. But if you become overly reliant on one of them, especially formulas, then things start to get a little weird. But it's kind of human nature to fall in line with these formulas because concepts, which I like. I love concepts. Like, I'm the type of person who grew up and they told me I could talk into this microphone, and I'm like, well, how does that work? Oh, these lights, like, how does it produce lights? Why do I see stuff? Like, I was always into wanting to understand the concepts of how things worked around me, because in my brain, if I can't understand the concept of something, then I won't ever feel comfortable doing it. Like, that's how my brain works. Your brain might work differently. My brain works like that. I need to understand the concept of something. I'm going to use a camera. I need to understand exactly how that camera works in order to know how to work it, because I want to be in a position with myself to know, okay, if I get this problem, I can figure out how to solve that problem, even though that I might not have been told how to solve it, just by figuring out how this camera works, right? For an example, when I was in college learning how a camera works, I would encounter days that would be sunnier than others and not sunnier than others. And I wanted to understand how the camera works, so I knew what settings to put the camera on. Because if I didn't understand how the camera worked, I would never be able to figure that out. You know, basically how a camera works is that it lets light in, and you can adjust how much light it lets in. And then you have ISO, which is digital, and that artificially brightens or darkens the image. And you can figure out and play with these things like shutter speed that controls how much light is passing per second, to figure out how bright your image is going to be. And when you understand all that stuff, you can look at a sunny day, you can look at your camera and go, I need to change the settings. I'll change the settings to this. But I saw a lot of people who weren't interested in understanding the concept of the camera. And they'll bring their camera out and they'll look at that sun and they'll go and put the camera in auto because they don't know how to solve that problem. And then they put the camera in auto and they wonder why their video settings are changing all the time, because they didn't understand the concept. They saw that problem as, hey, it's sunny, I got to put it on auto, or I'm going to put it on sun mode on my camera, right? It's a multiple choice question. Instead of figuring out the answer for yourself, you relied on something else to tell you what the answer should be. And again, if that's how you rock, I'm not trying to shade you or anything, but I am trying to show my appreciation for the more conceptual side of sports talk. And I understand why formulas are popular, because formulas are comfortable, right? Like, formulas are super comfortable. You know what to expect, or at least you feel like you know what to expect. You can plug things in, you can move things around, boom, that's going to be a product that's worth doing. But I feel like concepts are more gratifying. Concepts are more thought-provoking, right? I try to hit sports talk with a more conceptual based approach, instead of making things super formulaic. And look, I have my formulas, my Q&As, my winners and losers segments, and all of these things. But I do like to throw some conceptual things like this video in here, where it's just me talking about the state of sports talk. Or maybe I'm standing sometimes. Maybe I'm sitting, right? I like to switch things up. And that long way around. I'm sorry I took you on such a long way around, but long way around, that's one of my issues with sports talk. We don't seem to be interested in the concepts of the things that we're talking about. We just seem to be interested in figuring out how we can multiple choice these things up. Quarterback throws an interception. Whose fault was it? That's the first question. Quarterback throws an interception. Whose fault was it? Not what happened. Not did something go wrong? No. Whose fault was it? Was it A, the wide receiver? Was it B, the quarterback? Or was it C, a tip ball? That's how far we engage with it. Instead of engaging with the concept of football and saying, hey, man, there was an interception. Why did this happen? Okay, he saw this linebacker baited him, his eyes went here, this wide receiver thought it was zone, so he stopped in this spot, and then that's how the miscommunication happened. That doesn't make anybody feel comfortable, because the answer to that question, whose fault it was, is actually everybody's fault. The defense did some shit, the wide receiver did some shit, the quarterback did some shit, it was everybody's fault. But that's not comfortable. What makes people comfortable is saying, that interception was that wide receiver's fault, or that interception was that quarterback's fault, or that interception is on the offensive line for not, like, that makes people feel more comfortable. But the concept gives you better understanding of what's actually going down. Look at a lot of sports talk. Ask yourself how many people are actually engaging with the concept of the thing that they're talking about. And you will realize surprisingly very few. Even people with a lot of NFL experience refuse to engage with the concept because they understand that the multiple choiceification of, I could have chose a less complicated word, but the multiple choiceification of this is the easiest way to get engagement. Because if I ask you whose fault that interception was, you can debate that all day. If I ask you what happened on that interception, I'll get like 6 or 7 different opinions. But nobody gonna want to debate it. Everybody gonna have their opinion. People are like, oh yeah, I can see that, and then move on. That's what I call the multiple choiceification of sports talk. And that's why me looking on Twitter at a prompt asking who's more responsible, Jim Schwartz or Kevin Stefanski, for the Cleveland Browns' success, can piss me off. I just wanted to share that with you. And I want to know what you guys think of that. Do you think that we don't engage enough with the concept of the sport that we talk about when we talk about these sports? Or do you like that we kind of boil it down to formulas? Quarterback throw an interception, whose fault it was. Running back doesn't run well, why ain't they running the ball more? Or what's going, or is the running back just trash, or is it the offensive line, right? Do you like that kind of like more formulaic approach to sports talk? Or are you here for more of a conceptual approach, or do you see the benefits in both? I'm truly interested to know how you feel, and I'm truly interested to know if stuff like that bothers you as much as it bothered me, or now that you're thinking about it, you can understand why the multiple choiceification of sports talk bugs me. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Appreciate y'all dealing with me. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.